Part 2. Dad threw me out at 13 because stepmom hated me. Now he wants me back. It wasn't like there was some huge mess or anything. I hadn't even spilled a drop of milk. It was like she was making a point to show that whatever I was doing didn't matter. I couldn't believe it. Who just throws away someone's food like that? I snapped. All the frustration and stress I'd been holding in for months just came out. I slammed my hands on the table and yelled, "What is your problem with me?" She turned around, eyes wide like she didn't expect me to fight back. "Why do you hate me so much? I haven't done anything to you, and all you do is treat me like I'm trash." She didn't respond at first, just stood there, stunned, like no one had ever called her out before. And then, like clockwork, she started crying. Full-on tears, sobbing, acting like I had just said the worst thing imaginable. Before I could say anything else, David, my dad, came rushing in from the living room like he always does when Laura starts crying. "What's going on?" he asked, but it was one of those questions where he wasn't actually looking for an answer. He was already taking her side. Before I could even open my mouth, she started talking through her tears, saying that I was stressing her out, that I was making her feel uncomfortable in her own home, and that she couldn't take it anymore. I looked at my dad, waiting for him to at least ask for my side, but he didn't. Instead, he turned to me and said, "What did you do?" Like it was automatically my fault. Like I had done something so horrible that it was causing her to cry like that. I couldn't believe it. I just stared at him, speechless. Then Laura dropped the bombshell. "I don't want her around my baby," she said, still crying. "I can't handle this stress. It's not good for me, and it's definitely not good for the baby. She needs to leave." That's when my dad walked me to my room, like I was the one who'd done something wrong. He closed the door behind us and looked at me like he was about to say something important. I could feel my heart pounding in my chest because I knew, deep down, that whatever he said next was going to change everything between us. "You must be doing something to Laura," he said. "No one hates a kid for no reason. You need to stop stressing her out, or you're going to have to leave. I can't have her this upset while she's pregnant. It's not good for her, and it's not good for the baby." I felt like the floor had just dropped out from under me. I couldn't even process what he was saying. Laura wanted me out of the house, and instead of standing up for me, instead of even trying to figure out what was going on, my dad just sided with her. It was like I didn't matter at all, like I was just some problem that needed to be solved. I stood there, staring at him, not knowing what to say. A million thoughts were running through my head, but none of them made sense. All I could feel was this crushing weight in my chest, like I was suffocating. I didn't know what to do, so I just nodded, grabbed a bag, and started packing some clothes. I didn't want to be there anymore anyway, not after everything that had happened. I went back to my room, locked the door, and posted on social media asking if anyone had a place for me to stay. I explained the situation in detail, not holding anything back. I didn't care if people thought I was being dramatic or whatever. I just needed to get out. My phone started blowing up almost immediately, but I ignored it. I grabbed my backpack, stuffed some clothes in, and climbed out the window. It wasn't hard, my room was on the ground floor, and it's not like I hadn't done it before. I just wanted to be anywhere but there. I didn't even know where I was going at first, but I figured I could crash at a friend's place for a while. I couldn't stand being in that house another second, not after what my dad had said. I walked for about 30 minutes before I even thought to turn my phone back on. Messages flooded in, my dad, Laura, people commenting on my post. I didn't read any of them. I just turned it off again and kept walking. I ended up at my friend's house, and her parents let me stay the night. I didn't tell them everything, just that things were rough at home and I needed a place to crash. They didn't ask questions, which I was grateful for. I texted my mom from my friend's phone to let her know what happened. She couldn't call me right away, she was in surgery, but she said she'd send my aunt to pick me up the next day. That was good enough for me. I just needed a break from all of it. By the time I finally crashed that night, I couldn't stop thinking about what my dad had said, "No one hates a kid for no reason." That sentence kept replaying in my head over and over, and the more I thought about it, the angrier I got. How could he think that? How could he just assume that I was doing something to deserve this? I'd done everything I could to stay out of Laura's way, to help out around the house, to make things easier for everyone, and this was how they treated me. I didn't know what was going to happen next, but I knew one thing for sure, I wasn't going back to that house, not after what they said. The morning after I left, I woke up at my friend's house feeling a little bit numb. Everything that happened the night before was still swirling around in my head, but it was almost like it hadn't really hit me yet. Like I knew I wasn't going back to my dad's house, but it hadn't. Fully sunk in that this might be permanent. My friend's parents were super nice, didn't ask any awkward questions. They just gave me breakfast and let me chill in their living room. I didn't want to talk about what had happened. I was still trying to process everything. I didn't even know how I felt about it yet, mostly just tired, like emotionally drained, you know? Around midday, my Aunt Maggie showed up. She gave me that concerned look you get when people know something's wrong but don't want to make it worse by asking too many questions. We didn't say much to each other at first. She just helped me grab my stuff from my friend's place and drove me back to her house. I was relieved, honestly. I always felt safe at Maggie's. She's that cool aunt who always gets it, never judges and knows when you just need space. As we pulled up to her house, I finally turned my phone back on. Big mistake. My phone blew up with texts and calls, mostly from my dad. He must have tried calling me at least 20 times the night before. There were messages too, some from him, some from Laura, but also a few from people in the family, probably after my dad's post about me running away. I didn't bother reading all of them at first. It was just too much. I needed a break from all that. But I did text my mom to let her know I was okay, even though she already knew since she and Maggie had talked. I didn't want her worrying more than she already was with all the work stress. She texted me back right away, saying she was glad I was safe and that we'd talk when she could catch a break from the hospital. I knew my dad must have been losing it after realizing I wasn't at the house, especially when I didn't respond to his calls. But honestly, I didn't care. He's the one who basically told me I wasn't wanted there. What did he expect? I didn't feel like dealing with his excuses or hearing him try to make it sound like it was my fault, not after what he'd said to me the night before. But as I sat there, I couldn't help but think about the bigger fallout. I knew my grandparents, my dad's parents, weren't going to take this lightly. They were always super protective of me, especially since I didn't live with my dad full time. They'd probably tear into him for what happened. I couldn't even imagine what they'd say once they found out the whole story. Curiosity got the better of me, and I finally started reading some of the messages. First, there was a long one from my dad that basically said he was sorry for how things went down, but he kept defending Laura, saying she was just stressed from the pregnancy and that I needed to be more understanding.